For example, a typical meeting. Everyone nods and smiles, but behind these polite gestures, behind this persona, hidden intentions are concealed. Manifestations of the shadow are visible in the details, in the movements, in the pauses, in the tone of voice. Once you learn to catch these subtle signals, your perception of people, your understanding of their shadow, will change forever. Let's discover together what people are really hiding behind their words and actions, behind their persona. This technique may seem simple, but its effectiveness is impressive. It is like a superpower that does not require wearing a costume or a cape. What is most surprising is that no one suspects that you are using it. All that is required is to remain calm, attentive, and aware of the manifestation of the shadow. When someone tells their version of a story, instead of arguing or imposing your opinion, a manifestation of ego, simply say 3 small words. Tell me more. When people feel that they are truly being listened to, without judgment or interruptions, they gradually remove their defenses, their persona. Without the need to defend themselves or argue, they begin to share much more than they initially planned. This phrase creates a safe space where a person feels ready to reveal their true motives, fears, insecurities, their shadow, without even realizing it. This technique works perfectly in various situations. At business meetings, in personal conversations, and even when interacting with people whose intentions may seem dubious and whose shadow may be particularly active. In negotiations where there is a hint of pressure, simply say, "Tell me more." The other side begins to open up, sharing their strategy and even their doubts, their shadow. You will learn much more than planned. It is important to note that this technique is not just a way to obtain information or win arguments. It is a way to build trust, understanding, and to facilitate the process of individuation of another person. In the modern world where everyone rushes to speak but rarely listens, the phrase, "tell me more," becomes a true gift for the interlocutor. It is a departure beyond one's own ego and a genuine interest in another person, in their inner world. When you invite people to share their thoughts and feelings without judging or interrupting, you give them the opportunity to be heard, which builds trust and strengthens mutual understanding. This technique ideally complements one of the fundamental principles of Jungian psychology, the striving for wholeness, for the integration of the shadow. This is not about manipulating or controlling the conversation. Rather, it is the ability to observe, understand, and maintain calm, being aware of shadow projections. This allows you to see people as they really are, with all their light and shadow sides, helping them to reveal themselves. The ability to listen and observe without unnecessary interference is a form of inner strength, strength of ego. Try this technique in your next conversation, whether it is a casual chat, a negotiation, or even an argument. You will be amazed at how much deeper the interaction becomes, how much people are willing to reveal, how easy it is to understand them without pressure, and how much you can learn about their shadow. This is not just a victory in dialogue, it is the creation of genuine human connections based on respect, sincere curiosity, and the striving for shadow integration. True strength lies in the ability to see others, their shadow, and through this, to better understand yourself, your own shadow, and move along the path of individuation. Second, pay attention to how they treat people in less advantageous positions. If you want to know a person's character, to see their shadow, pay attention not only to how they interact with you, but also to how they behave with those they consider beneath them in status. This may seem controversial, but such observation reveals harsh truths about human nature, about manifestations of the shadow. Whether it is a waiter in a restaurant, a cashier in a store, or a colleague lower down the corporate ladder, how a person treats those with less power reveals their true essence, their shadow. There are many examples of how a person who seemed kind and respectful in certain circumstances suddenly changes their behavior, manifesting their shadow when faced with people from whom they want nothing. It is easy to be polite and welcoming to someone on whom you want to make a good impression. But once a person realizes that the other person is not dependent on them, their shadow can come to the forefront. If someone is kind to you, but shows contempt, rudeness, or arrogance towards those in a dependent position. It is a sure sign that their kindness is just a mask, a persona, and not a true reflection of their personality. It is important not only to recognize moments of shadow manifestation in others, but also to avoid such manifestations in oneself. A person should be fair and generous to everyone, regardless of their position or status, striving for shadow integration. For true strength of character, strength of ego, is manifested not when we show ourselves in the best light, but when we remain true to our principles, to ourself, even when there is no need to pretend, to maintain a persona. How people treat those they consider beneath them says a lot about how they see themselves, about the degree of their self-acceptance and shadow integration. Those who show respect and kindness to all often possess inner confidence, harmony, and wholeness. They do not need to rise at the expense of others. Those who humiliate and show cruelty to those they consider weaker project their own insecurities, fears, and complexes, their shadow. This is one form of arrogance, a manifestation of the shadow. Therefore, if you want to know who a person really is, do not be deceived by their behavior in the company of those on whom they need to make an impression, maintaining their persona. The true character, the degree of shadow integration, is manifested in how they behave with those they consider insignificant. This is the surest way to see a person's true essence, their shadow. Third technique, their past is the key to their present. If you want to look into a person's soul, understand their shadow, pay attention to their past. It is often heard that the past is behind us, but this is just an illusion. It always stays with us and shapes who we are today, whether we realize it or not. A person's experiences, traumas, victories, relationships, all influence their thoughts, behavior, complexes, and manifestations of the shadow, and even how they interact with you at this moment. A person's past is not just a collection of memories, it is an active force shaping their present. People do not just move on, they carry their stories, their unresolved traumas with them, which sometimes become a plan for their actions, dictated by their shadow. For example, a person who is constantly on edge, exhibiting a defensive reaction, may have experienced traumatic events in the past that shaped their shadow. They have faced situations that taught them not to trust, to defend themselves, and to expect the worst. The past dictates their actions in the present. Their reactions are dictated by their shadow. Someone who grew up without attention may crave constant recognition, compensating for a complex of inferiority. Someone who has experienced betrayal now finds it difficult to trust people, a projection of the shadow. Understanding a person's past is not an excuse for their behavior, but it allows you to see that their motives and reactions are formed on the basis of past experience, on the basis of their shadow and complexes. It is important to see things as they are, without judgment, being aware of the influence of the shadow. Understanding someone's past is part of seeing reality clearly. Applying this approach, you can better understand that a person often reacts not to current events, but to echoes of their experiences, to their shadow. This can also be noticed in relationships. The harsh truth is that many people live in a cycle, repeating the same patterns of behavior laid down in the past, dictated by the shadow and complexes, without even realizing it. For example, a colleague who constantly seeks confirmation of their importance may be reliving a childhood in which they never felt good enough, a complex. A friend who sabotages relationships is probably afraid of rejection because of a previous disappointment, a manifestation of the shadow. Their reactions and decisions are a mirror of their unresolved experiences, their shadow. Understanding a person's past goes even deeper. It not only helps you better navigate your relationships with them, but also gives you the opportunity to help a person break out of a vicious circle. You can help a person become aware of their habits, their complexes, and possibly finally face what they have been avoiding for years, their shadow. It is important to remember about self-analysis, introspection, and personal growth. Understanding someone else's past can help guide a person on the path of self-improvement, on the path of shadow integration. It is easy to judge people by their actions in the present, but their past is the key to understanding their shadow, their complexes, their behaviour, and it allows you to show more empathy and understanding, while protecting yourself from becoming involved in their unresolved problems, in their shadow. The past always stays with us. To truly understand a person, you need to see the whole picture, their entire history, and not just the part they are living in at the moment, not just their persona. Fourth technique, sudden changes in tone signal lies or insecurity. One of the most obvious signs that a person is lying, hiding something, or experiencing inner turmoil is revealed in their voice. Our voice reflects inner conflicts, the influence of the shadow. When a person feels confident, their body and mind are in harmony. But as soon as a lie begins, or a person feels discomfort associated with the shadow, their true state begins to be revealed through their voice. This can manifest as a rise in tone, an uneven pace of speech, stumbles, or pauses that seem too long. Sometimes the voice becomes quieter, and sometimes, on the contrary, too cheerful, as if the person is trying to hide their insecurity, their shadow, behind forced joy. A sudden change in tone is a sure indicator that a person is experiencing discomfort, whether it is due to lying, withholding information, their own insecurity, or an internal conflict associated with the shadow. For example, when a colleague who is always confident in their words suddenly changes their tone in a conversation about a project, it may signal that they are hiding something, are not completely sure of their actions, or are experiencing an internal conflict associated with the shadow. These changes often happen unconsciously. People may try to control their words, but not always their voice. It is important to learn to observe the behavior of people without judgment, being aware of the manifestation of the shadow. Careful listening and analysis of changes in tone can give a more complete picture of what is happening in the inner world of the interlocutor, even if their words seem confident. It is worth remembering that people lie not only to others, but also to themselves. When a person suddenly changes their tone, it is not always a sign of manipulation or deception. It can be a sign of an internal conflict, a struggle with the shadow that the person may not even realize. It is important to strive for harmony between thoughts, words, and actions, for shadow integration. When they do not agree, it inevitably becomes noticeable. Listening to ourselves or others, we can expose these inconsistencies, these manifestations of the shadow, and work to restore this harmony, moving along the path of individuation. The next time you notice a sudden change in tone in a conversation, a drop in energy, an awkward pause, a change in intonation, do not ignore it. Ask yourself, what is this person hiding? What shadow are they trying to conceal? Why are they uncomfortable? What internal conflict are they experiencing? It may not be a lie in the full sense, but there is a high probability that they are not completely frank, that they are struggling with their shadow. The voice is a storyteller, and if you listen carefully, you can hear its story, the story of its shadow. Fifth technique, a person's true face is revealed when they think they are not being seen. If you want to know a person, to see their shadow, pay attention to how they behave when they think no one is watching them. It is in these moments that people remove the mask, the persona, that they wear before society and reveal their true personality, their shadow. This is a contradictory truth because many want to believe that who they are in public, their persona, coincides with who they are when they remain alone with themselves. However, in reality, the opposite often happens. When a person does not consider themselves an object of observation, they allow themselves to act more naturally, manifesting their shadow. An example might be colleagues who maintain politeness and goodwill before management, maintaining their persona, but lose this mask as soon as the management leaves the office. In such moments, their shadow is manifested through a contemptuous attitude towards the team, rude jokes, or caustic comments. Behind the external facade, behind the persona, lies a completely different reality, the reality of the shadow. This applies to all aspects of life, relationships, business, Casual encounters. For example, in romantic relationships, people often try to show themselves in the best light in the early stages, maintaining their persona. But you can truly understand a person, see their shadow, only by observing their behavior in relaxed moments when there is no need to make an impression. It is worth paying attention to the little things, how a person reacts to stressful situations, how they behave when it seems to them that no one is watching them. These everyday moments reveal much more than ostentatious behavior in important meetings or large social situations. It is important to learn to observe the world objectively, without judgment, being aware of the manifestation of the shadow. People often unconsciously manifest their shadow, showing who they really are. It is important to remember that virtue, integrity of personality, does not need applause. Even when no one is evaluating their actions, a virtuous person lives in accordance with their values, with their self. However, many people, being out of sight of others, exhibit less attractive traits, their shadow. Seeing how a person behaves when they think they are not noticed, you can understand how sincere their actions are, the degree of their shadow integration. It is who you are in the shadow, not in the light, not in your persona. It is important to live in accordance with your values, with yourself, always, regardless of whether others are watching us, regardless of whether the hall is full or empty. The action of an integrated person remains consistent, proceeding from the self and not from the desire to receive the approval of others, the dictates of the persona. Observing other people in their relaxed moments, you will not only reveal their true essence, their shadow, but also remind yourself of the importance of living honestly and authentically, integrating the shadow and following the path of individuation, even when no one is watching. Therefore, if you want to truly understand a person, do not focus on their persona. It is important to pay attention to what they do when the spotlight is off. It is at this moment that true character, the degree of shadow integration, is revealed, and it is there that the truth lives. Sixth technique. Emotional reactions reveal priorities. To understand what is really important to a person, what their values are, what their shadow is, it is enough to carefully observe their reactions in various situations. Emotions are a direct window into a person's inner world, into their shadow. They reveal their values, priorities, and what is truly dear to them. Although many of us believe that we can control our emotions and hide what concerns us with the help of a persona, in reality, strong reactions, whether anger, excitement, or anxiety, coming from the shadow, indicate that something significant, something connected with their self, or, on the contrary, with their shadow, is at stake. This is a controversial idea, since many are confident in their self-control, in the strength of their persona. But as soon as emotions get out of control, they reveal a person's true priorities, their shadow. Imagine a situation where a colleague, usually calm and balanced, suddenly loses their temper because of a seemingly insignificant edit in the project. This outburst of anger, a manifestation of the shadow, may be surprising, but most likely their emotions are related to the fact that the project has personal significance for them and they perceive it as their own creation, as part of their self. Such reactions do not arise out of thin air. They indicate that something is being touched, connected with their self or shadow. People's emotional reactions often reveal more than words. For example, a boss who gets angry when their decision is questioned probably associates their sense of self-worth, their self, with infallibility, which may be a manifestation of a complex. A friend who reacts violently to your harmless comment may be hiding deep insecurity, their shadow. A colleague who is overly emotional in response to praise for their work shows that recognition is one of their main priorities, even if they have never voiced it. The key point here is that strong emotions, both positive and negative, are always associated with what a person considers important, with their self or with their shadow. People may behave calmly and distantly in ordinary situations, but when something that is really important to them is threatened, their shadow comes to the surface and they flare up. This applies not only to anger or irritation, but also to things that bring joy and inspiration. The joyful excitement that a person manifests when talking about their hobby or about a project that inspires them testifies that this has special significance for them, that this is connected with their self. In relationships, this is even more pronounced. If a person is upset about disrupted plans, it is a sign that spending time together is very important to them. If they become animated when discussing travels or events, it indicates that creating shared experiences is one of their priorities. Emotions are always associated with values, with the self or with the shadow, and by observing them, you can better understand what truly concerns a person. For example, if someone suddenly starts to defend themselves when you mention punctuality, it may mean that they attach particular importance to punctuality, perhaps due to past experiences when they were let down, or due to an inner need for control, a manifestation of the shadow. It is important to observe the behavior of people objectively, without judgment, being aware of the manifestation of the shadow. Emotions are one of the most important indicators of a person's true priorities, their self or their shadow. When a person manifests strong emotions, it means that a topic important to them has been touched upon. Recognizing this, you can better understand people's motives, their shadow. But it is important to remember that the same principles apply to yourselves. Your own reactions and emotions are a mirror of your true values, yourself and your shadow. Use this knowledge to better understand both others and yourselves. Your shadow. Strive to live in accordance with your values, with yourself, every day, regardless of the circumstances. In this lies the strength, true virtue, and the path to individuation.